Hi, my name is Christopher David Mitchell. I'm a coach, and today we're going to be talking about how to heal from tough times and adversity. So by the end of this video, what you're going to have is the root level solution to actually overcoming adversity, to getting through tough times. And this doesn't matter if it's been sort of tragic loss, health issues, family issues. If there's something there that's still making you feel sad, melancholy, upset, and you feel like you've not really got over it, you've not really healed, this would be the perfect video for you to find that root level solution. And I promise here, I'm talking from real life experience. If you watch my video on my channel, my survival story, living with an ileostomy bag, I had years of like near-death experiences, 2 life-saving operations, having to live with an ileostomy bag for the rest of my life, and to cope and deal and heal from that adversity and those tough times, those difficult emotions to deal with, took this process that I'm going to say with you now. So what are the signs that you haven't healed? Well, there's some small signs and then there's the one big sign, so I'm going to say that. The small signs are that if you haven't fully healed from something in your past, you haven't healed emotionally from some tough times, maybe you lost your health, you lost a relationship, you lost your business, you're just dealing with strong negative emotions, that can turn into, if you haven't dealt with it fully, it can turn into sort of subtle addictions. You can feel sorry for yourself and then you start drinking. You don't feel good about yourself and then you start smoking, okay? Or you just feel sort of melancholy. You don't feel like you've got purpose. Again, the problem isn't that you've got a purpose problem or a smoking problem, but the underlying, you haven't fully healed from some of the strong negative emotions that you've been through in your life, the adversity you've been through. So some small signs that you haven't fully healed is if you're going into some of those tendencies, like I say. But I think this is the big sign of, have you healed from adversity? So the big sign is that when you talk about your adversity, what you experienced, are you still triggered or are you still very emotional about it? They're the warning signs that you haven't fully healed and overcome what you've been through. And don't get me wrong, this takes a while, this takes a long time and it's difficult. I totally empathize here. But what I mean is, and I'll give my own personal situation here, is that when I came out of hospital and I had the ileostomy bag, I remember there was a conversation with a girl, I still remember it, and I was in a bar. And it was about 5 months after I came out of hospital. And she asked me, what's happened? What have you been through? Because I'd sort of told her that I'd been through hospital. And then I started talking about it, about my experience in hospital. And I broke down crying in the middle of a bar. I still remember that. She'll know who she is as well. But anyway, so that was a massive, like a clear warning sign that obviously I hadn't healed and I wasn't over it, right? But it can be more subtle. It can be like, so say you try and talk to someone about their adversity, whether it's a health issue or a relationship issue or someone they know passed away. If they're triggered, like they get a bit funny or they don't want to talk about it, or I just don't want to talk about it, then again, they haven't fully healed and they're still running away from it. So if you or someone you know is always triggered, they don't want to talk about it, they change the subject, or they're emotional and they can't talk about it, those are the big warning signs that they haven't healed. Whereas now that I have healed from sort of the adversity and living with an ileostomy bag, I'm able to talk about it to someone. Pretty much like this. If I had to tell someone now, I'd be like, oh yeah, I've got an ileostomy bag. So I'm cool with it. I don't feel any shift in emotions. I don't feel any shift in sort of like, oh God, I've got to say this big thing. So that's when I know that I've healed fully from the adversity in the past. So what is the root level solution of healing your adversity and your tough times and your negative emotions? Well, here it is. These ones, when I say these, they're never what anyone wants to hear. But it's that you've got to lean into it. You've got to face it head on. That's it. So when you're smoking, you're running away. When you're drinking, you're running away. When you don't want to talk about it, you're running away. When you want to change subject, you're running away. So that shows that you haven't done the work of going through it fully, 100%, what you went through, fully feeling your emotions. This is a big one. So when people feel sad or upset or a bit down, when they think about their adversity, their tough times, whatever it is for you, they'll resist that. They'll resist crying because they should be okay. Because society is like, be strong, stay strong. Well, not really. Just stay true to how you really feel. So point is, you've probably through the adversity got all this built up emotion in you. You don't want to resist that. If you resist the emotion that's been building through all your tough times and you don't have an outlet for that, a real outlet, not an addiction outlet, but a real one, then the longer and longer you resist, the worse and worse it gets. So the solution, like I say, is facing it head on, leaning into it. So let's start with emotions. If you've got all these negative, sad emotions about what happened to you or your adversity, you want to let them go through you. You want to let that out. Now you could do this through talking to someone. You could do it through just sitting around crying. Like if you actually go through the exercise of playing some sad songs, sitting down, thinking about your adversity, contemplating that and just crying it out, you will let it out in a healthy way and it won't be as bad anymore. It's like a weight is lifted. Other ways you can do it are, talking therapy, hypnotherapy, journaling, contemplating it, self-reflecting, but you have to hit the problem head on. And that's the hard thing because psychologically it's really difficult. It's difficult to spend a lot of time, say with me and the ileostomy bag. The easiest thing for me to do is just distract myself. But it's difficult for me to contemplate, okay, I've got this ileostomy bag, but there the real healing and acceptance happens when you sort of think about it head on, when you talk about it head on, when you let yourself cry, when you let yourself be sad, and when you're honest with what you're feeling. So if like me, if I'm feeling shame about it, I can't cover that up. I have to go through shame 100%. I have to feel shame. I have to let it out. I have to contemplate shame. I have to think about why I feel shame. I have to really feel that shame, which is emotionally difficult, in order for it to go out. And then when I've fully felt that, it's not as bad afterwards. You see, people don't want to feel that because they're scared about leaning into negative emotions. They're scared about leaning into these deep, dark emotions that surround our adversity. But the only way is to deal with that head on. Say there's another emotion of like guilt or something. You've got some guilt around something and you don't know how to heal your guilt. Well, you have to do a lot of work with the guilt head on. You have to write for pages and pages about what guilt is making you feel and why you feel guilt. You have to talk it out with a therapist or a coach for hours and hours about why you feel it, what made you feel it, to come to a form of acceptance, to be able to let it go. It has to go through you. It can't stay stored and resisted. You can basically get through any negative emotion, any adversity, any negative experience if you allow it to feel it fully and then let it pass through you. But where you don't heal for 5, 10, 20, 30 years is when you resist this process. and you don't want to feel it, and you don't want to talk about it, and you don't want to go there, and you're not willing to cry, you're not willing to show emotion, you're not willing to contemplate why you feel shame, then it builds and builds and builds. And then, like I say, the release comes in the wrong way of addictions, depression, stuff like that. So that's the answer in a nutshell right there. And it's hard psychologically to do, like we say. It's hard to allow yourself to be sad and be okay with it. Allow yourself to feel the emotions and everything about what the adversity meant. Even if someone died, allowing yourself to sit on that, to lean into that, to go into that, to think about the death, to think about the tragedy, to think about what comes up for you. How does that make you feel? It's more painful in the short term to do this process, but then it's more beautiful and healing in the long term. Think of it like any wound. It's the easiest thing is to sort of just, put a band-aid over it, or, try and do something else rather than like healing the wound head on. To heal the wound head on is like, it can sting. It can be more painful to touch that wound head on. Now, what we're talking about here with healing negative emotions or the thoughts and the trauma of adversity is doing that on a psychological level, is doing that on an emotional level, where it's painful to just weep and cry your eyes out. But God, you feel better afterwards. You feel better because there's this release. I remember when I went to my hypnotherapist for the first time in 2019, and I'd bottled up everything about my health story journey, the shame about having an ileostomy bag, the feeling of low self-worth, the feeling of not feeling valuable in life because people left me when I had a bag, the feeling of feeling a bit ugly because, I have this bag on my skin. And I kept all that locked up for several years. And then when I went to the hypnotherapist, he was amazing. If you're ever in London, I've got the best hypnotherapist that I see. And he was really allowing me to fully, and it was difficult, but he made me fully hit every one of these emotions and go through it head on. And it was painful, and I was crying my eyes out. But afterwards, wow, it's almost like you've got like that spot that's been lingering under the surface, and it's painful to try and get it out, and then there's that release. And the only way to truly have that release is to face every emotion, every experience, everything within your adversity head on. And I thank my hypnotherapist so much for that. And another release sort of with that was confronting it head on with telling my story in the YouTube video. Now that's a bit more extreme. You want to do it your way. You want to face it head on however feels right to you. But don't avoid it. Don't walk away. Don't distract yourself with anything else, because another beautiful person in a relationship, that's not hitting it head on. That won't fix anything. More money, that's not hitting your adversity head on. That's not going to fix anything. Fame, that's not going to do anything. And unfortunately, we see this with people that I really love, like Chester Bennington from Linkin Park, who committed suicide. I think suffered from this one, which was that I know he had a lot of past trauma as a kid. And to distract yourself with fame and success, and to be on that whirlwind, to be on that ride, to be on that thing where everyone's saying how well you're doing and society's valuing you, feels great for a sec, but it never heals like hitting something head on, like really confronting the deepest, darkest depths. It's painful at first, and go through it with a professional, but that's the way for true release. So I hope that helped today. Like I say, it's got to be unique to you. You've got to do it in your own way. in your own time. But that's the key insight. And that's what you've probably been resisting doing. If you've been suffering for a while, you've been still suppressing everything, putting everything down, and what it does is it builds, it builds, it builds, it builds. And so I hope that helped today. Please like this video if it was helpful. Comment anything that you might have further questions on this, and visit my website christopherdavmitchell.com. If you feel like you trust me and you want me to help you go through this process, which does take a while, like explaining it in a video is great, but the process will take months. I mean, it will. I'm not going to promise like, oh, I'll get you healed in one day. You can have moments like that I had with my hypnotherapist. You can have real moments, but true healing, depending on how long you've been repressing it, will take time. And the longer you go on repressing it, the longer it will take to heal, generally. So if you want me to go through that process with you of overcoming that adversity from my own life experience of doing it myself to help you with that, that would be an absolute pleasure. Let me know and contact me via my website. Otherwise, stick around for more videos in the future on this journey together of transforming our lives. And I thank you so much for watching. Take care.